of the members that are present will be permitted to be asked the minister, so that the minister can answer that and go back to conduct other business. So 5A and I think 5B too is not around. So I direct that they be rescheduled.
Health Honorable Ajimameno, Minister for Tourism Honorable Awal were all here to respond to the questions, but the members were not available. The Hansard must capture same for the record.
I mean, Kweku, I'm just curious. So the entire minority side was empty. There was not a single soul in the seat there.
So only the chief whip actually came around to just grant us that exclusive interview and then went back together with their colleagues to storm the High Court. At the time the Speaker of Parliament entered the chamber, there were a little about 25 to 30 NPP MPs who were on the floor. On the minority side, it was completely empty. I actually saw the Speaker coming in and then looking at the side and was wondering, where are all these members? In fact, when he took his seat, he did not make any comments as to that. But at some point, he was acknowledging some students from Ahafo-Ano School, and then he said that they were there because of the MP for Ahafo-Ano North, who is an NDC MP. That was at the time that some NPP MPs shouted that, well, she is not even here in the House. She is going to court to solidarize with their colleagues. And it was then that the Speaker made a little remark that, oh, okay, if that was so, then the House was going to proceed to do other business. So it was empty completely on all the 137 benches in the minority side. There was not a single soul, not a single MP around.
And I wonder what the reaction from their majority colleagues have been to this. You've been chatting with some of them.
Right. So clearly, this crippled Parliament in terms of being able to go ahead and do some of these businesses. For instance, the majority side were pushing that if the NDC MPs were not around to ask these questions, then the questions should be deferred completely. It should not be rescheduled to another time. It was then that the Speaker of Parliament said that there had been some prior agreement that those questions be rescheduled. So when the House eventually took an adjournment to tomorrow, I caught up with two NPP MPs. First, the majority Deputy Whip, Habib Idrisu, as well as the Tema Central MP, Ives Hansenoti. And they described the action of their colleagues as irresponsible and that the calls to have those criminal charges against the NDC MPs dropped are simply untenable.
I don't know where. They were elected to come and sit in Parliament. They were not elected to be accompanying people to court. Their constituents should take note that today they asked a lot of questions about their educational infrastructure, about their health infrastructure, and about tourism in their various constituencies. But they were not in Parliament to even ask those questions. The ministers were there, the answers were provided, but yet none of them were not in the chamber, in the excuse that they have accompanied somebody to court. I don't know what kind of democracy or parliamentary procedure is this, but we are watching them keenly, and the business of the day is done for now. So if we as legislators are making laws and we expect the judiciary to implement it, now we are now telling them that so now Kwesing is above every other Ghanaian, so they should actually call that all cases in court should be dropped, but not of a particular person. Thank you.
If something happens, we don't take. If we allow him to be not acquitted, but if there's no prosecutor, then obviously you're setting a precedent that would linger on into the future. However, it doesn't also exonerate him, because another Attorney General can come in the future and pick it up and decide to prosecute him. So for me, I think the best thing for him is to go through the processes. If he's found not guilty, hooray, he'll come back and come and work with us. If he's found guilty, he pays for his crimes, and then we continue and move on. So for me, that's it.
So the 137 minority MPs were not in Parliament today. The excuse was that they would rather be in court to solidarize with their colleagues. So were they all in court? I want to bring in Kojo Nyako, who is our court correspondent, and he was in court for us today for two cases. Which were these cases? Well, so the first one is the James Jachi Kwesing case, and the other one is the Kesel Atuforcing case. Okay, so let's settle this. The MPs were not in the House. It crippled the House. He had to adjourn because of this. No business was done. Were they in court? Yes, they were all there. In fact, at 10:30, they started trickling in. So the case was called at 11. So at 11, I saw the minority leader leading his team to
the criminal court where the James Jachikwesin case was heard. In fact, he was supported by the deputies and all of them. So they filed past one after the other. In fact, it's not all of them that even got seat to even sit in court. Some of them were standing and they stood throughout the trial.
Okay, I want to bring in right now the Deputy Majority Whip, Habib Idris, who you heard complaining about the action of his colleagues on the minority side. Mr. Idris, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Yeah, good evening, Ivan.
Solidarity in politics is everything, is it not? I mean, this is a legitimate action by your colleagues. They are not boycotting Parliament. They are simply showing solidarity with your colleagues who are in court, something that all politicians do.
But, Evans, actually, it is rather unfortunate that our colleagues will boycott parliamentary proceedings today in the name of showing solidarity. Mind you, all 137 members of parliament from the NDC were not in court. It must be on record that not all the 137 of them were in court. But they just try to frustrate government business in the name of the fact that they all want to go and solidarize with their colleagues. If you look at the time even Parliament started, and you look at the time the cases of Ahafo-Ano and Kwesin were called, my check shows that I think one was planted around 11 o'clock, the other one was around 12. And we started proceedings today after 12 o'clock. And they had come to ask a lot of questions, and the ministers were there, the answers were provided, and yet they were not in the chamber. This example that members of parliament are setting is very bad for our democracy. We set out rules, we expect the courts to do their own work, and then we are now saying that because somebody has been charged by a criminal case, they will not sit in parliament. They are rather going to solidarize with the person. It is very bad for our democracy.
You say that, but you would have done same if you believe, like they do, that your members are being persecuted.
But, Evans, we've all been in Ghana, and we all know this is not the first time a member of parliament has been charged to court in terms of criminal issues. What Ahafo-Ano is facing, the charges that he's facing, it is never the case that no MP have ever faced such charges, but they never boycotted court. Kwesin, we all remember the case of Adamu Sanid. He faced the same cases, but you have never seen the minority then or the MPP then boycotting parliament to say that they are going to court for solidarity. So this is just an indication that our colleagues want to frustrate government business. Our colleagues just want to, I don't know how I'm going to describe it, if not being irresponsible in terms of the democracy that we are going. If you look at Collins Dowda, all the charges that they are facing, it's never the case that no MP have ever faced such charges before. But this that we are experiencing has never been the case. So you could see that today we had a very short sitting. We did some laying of papers and the questions were not being asked. And now the sitting that we have a lot of questions that have been passed. Members of parliament ask specific questions to get information from the ministers, and some are conferences specific. So if you are asking about a classroom block or something not being done in your constituency and you need to know, then at the end of the day you are saying you are going to court to solidarize with your colleagues. Which one? Is it that your constituency brought you to parliament to be able to speak and work on their interests, or it is not the case that you are going to be accompanying people to court in the name of solidarizing with them? I think it's rather unfortunate, and our colleagues need to know that this is not the first time that this case has happened before. They need to know that we are not above the law. Kwesin and Ahafo-Ano are not the only people who are facing such charges in Ghana. Other members of our other Ghanaians are also being charged criminal charges against. So why are we not saying we are not superior? We are equal before the law. So when you are a member of parliament and you exhibit this kind of character, this kind of what you are trying to do, what do you tell Ghanaians? That you are now above the law? Then where is the equality before the law?
So the business that was supposed to have been done today, that had been adjourned, will it still be heard? Because the question stood in the name of minority MPs.
Yes, out of today, the minister, there was 2 agent questions for the Minister for Education and about 610 questions for the Minister of Education. There were 4 questions for the Minister for Tourism and a lot of questions for the Minister responsible for Health. They were all the answers for those questions were provided in the order paper today. So we had to make it that Hansard should capture same that such questions, the ministers were in, the answers were provided for them to come and answer. If they doesn't find a space in the order paper again, the members should not come and say that they have asked questions and ministers haven't responded to it. But because to the best of our knowledge, the questions have been asked, admitted, written to the ministry. The minister was ready. They provided the answers. They were in parliament to answer those questions, and they were not available to ask.
I mean, this sounds to me like you this is going to be a tit for tat, and so they have urgent questions. They were not there, and so maybe the ministers may not show up.
No,
to
but
answer
there
those
are other
questions.
urgent questions and other questions. So those who will be available for their questions to be asked and answered, the ministers will be responding to that. So definitely, we have already programmed. Today we had a business committee meeting. All questions that are supposed to be asked next week, we did that today. I was at business committee meeting. We've done that. Questions that are supposed to come tomorrow have also been programmed. So until next week and the following week, their questions will not be programmed because it is not part of the business of the week.
So
Tomorrow
are you suggesting to them that
they won't be part of it?
Well, are you suggesting to them that they will lose the opportunity to ask the questions on behalf of their constituents because today they were not there?
That's not what I said. They have refused today to represent their constituents. So whatever happens is left to them. They're supposed to represent them today. They refuse to represent them. Other questions will be asked if other members who ask those questions are present to ask the ministers, and they will respond to them. But I don't think this week and next week it will find its place into the order paper.
And very quickly before you go, though, I mean, you still need the minority members to have a functioning parliament. Are you talking at all? Is there any dialogue open to try and resolve this?
You know, this eighth parliament, Evans, I know you've been following this parliament very keenly, and you could realize a majority of the work that we get done in parliament is through building consensus and dialogue. But this one is just a surprise, even though the minority leader had hinted that, anytime their colleague is going to court, they will not be coming to parliament. In fact, this is a total blackmail, because this is not how we dialogue. This is not how we cooperate with each other to get parliamentary business done. So I think maybe after today, tomorrow, if they are in the House, our colleagues will try and talk to them and be able to know. Because, mind you, the Speaker was not even aware that the minority was not going to come to the chamber. He was not aware. If you observe or if you watch the proceedings today, after we had leadership at the conclave, we came in. When the Speaker started the prayers, after the prayers, he had to, suspend sitting and said for 5 minutes. Then we went back to the Speaker chamber to be able to have a discussion. Then he asked the clerks another thing. The clerk said they had reached out to them. They said they were going to have a caucus meeting. Then they were in court. So it was not something that was even known, and it was like something that was just slapped on our faces. We were not expecting it. Neither were the ministers expecting it. That's why they were all in the House to be able to respond to these questions. So moving further, we'll devise a strategy to get along with this, to see how these things will be ironed out. But this is actually, it is very bad for our democracy. And as members of parliament, we are not above the law. If we are charged, we should be able to go to court to prove our innocence. And I don't think Atufolsin or whosoever is charged is guilty at the moment until proven so. So for them, if you are saying you are going to solidarize, are you already saying that they are guilty and you are trooping in there to support them? I don't understand. When you go in there, what is your role in there? Apart from that, they have lawyers who are representing them. The lawyers definitely will present their case on their behalf. You go there and you just stand, and then you are able to leave a job that you were elected
Mr.
to do.
Abib, I mean, our democratic history is littered with cases like this where the political parties show up in court in their numbers to solidarize. So this is not the first time.
But
we've seen
Evans,
this
does
play
that
out.
mean that if it is not the first time, does that mean that it is right? It is not right. And we
Okay.
have to say so.
I'm grateful, sir. That's the deputy majority whip there talking to us about the situation in Parliament. I'll take you to call pretty shortly, but I want to quickly bring in Dr. Rashid Draman, who is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, who has been watching this. In fact, he's been at the center of trying to negotiate a setting working relationship that is far more fruitful than what we're currently witnessing under this hung parliament. This is another setback, is it not, Dr. Rashid Draman? They threatened on Tuesday. We spoke to you then. You were hoping that some truce will be reached. It hasn't been reached. Parliament today had to close, adjourn, because the minority guys were not there. Is this sustainable? Because the case is not ending anytime soon.
Indeed, Evans, is not sustainable, and I think we know that it's not only the case of the Asin North member of parliament. We have the minority leader. We also have what do you call him, Honorable Collins Dauda, and we don't know who is going to follow next. So if this precedent is set, is it going to be the case that each time a member of parliament is in court to answer questions, we are going to mix the personal legal battles of individual MPs with the business of representing us in the House? Because as we noted today, the House had to adjourn and a number of businesses could not take place because of this absence. And there's representational role that is suffering. Already that's the weakest link, if you like, in the role that members of parliament perform. Most of them don't go to their constituencies. Most of them don't consult. I mean, the people that they are supposed to represent and so on. The list that we get from them in terms of representation is what they do on the floor of the House.
I need to ask them on the back of what is happening. How can this be resolved? Because if this case is going to travel, what we anticipate is a criminal trial. You have 3 of them. Then you can expect that Parliament can work for the next 1.5 years before the elections. Can something be done, and what will you propose?
Well, I think, Evans, what I would propose is, I know over the years, I mean, there have been instances of very high stakes and high tension in the House, and leadership has stepped in and cool heads have prevailed. I think the Right Honorable Speaker has a role in this. The entire leadership of the House has a role in this. And I think the earlier they look at this, the better for our democracy.
Okay.
That would separate the issues that are of concern. I don't think anybody should run away from answering before the court. But maybe if I hear the NDC clearly, I think the approach seems to be what they are questioning.
Yeah, and that's is what is leading to complaints about affecting parliamentary business and all. Dr. Rashid Draman, thank you very much for your time here on Top Story Indeed with your thoughts on this. I want to quickly go to the courts because this was being played out. This was played out in court today, whilst of course Parliament was empty, at least on the minority side. And James Achikwesin's case was the first that you sat in. We're learning that the president's rally address at Asin North was a centerpiece and then led to an exchange of words between Chachu Chikata and the Attorney General. What happened there?
Well, so it became very contentious. In fact, Chachu Chikata in his submission indicated that the president's comment and that of the Attorney General, both in and outside the court, were prejudicial. And so something should be done about it. And so he requested that part of the portions of the tape be played. 1 minute 34 seconds ought to be played. When they started playing it, the Attorney General stood up and said that, well, if the tape would have to be played, then it means that the entire tape would have to be played. So it's about 11 minutes. The president's speech was about 11 minutes, and so it ended that thing. So it was only 50 seconds of the tape that was played in court. But the Chachikata indicated that the judge erred in law. There was an application that ought to have been moved on Tuesday because James Achikwesin was on national assignment. That couldn't come off, and so that is why the various arguments of the state and then the accused were taken by the court.
I see. And then the NDC, they've been reacting to what transpired today after the proceedings. What was your position on that?
Also, NDC, the head of legal, Abraham Amalba, indicated that if the application for stay of proceedings is not granted, it means that Mr. James Achikwesin is not going to have a fair trial.
Thank you very much. And that's Kojo Nyako there. You want to catch the full detail of what happened in court and see their numbers on television. Watch Prime on the Joy News channel at 7 with the details. Also on our many social media platforms. But I quickly want to stay with the subject a while longer, considering what happened in Parliament today. Parliamentary business was halted because the MPs on the NDC side weren't there. One of them is Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He was in court today, I believe. Mr. Ablakwa, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Always a pleasure, Evans.
Were you in court today?
Most definitely.
And so I'm pretty sure you've learned what happened whilst you were away. Parliamentary business was halted. Nothing happened. The Speaker was forced to adjourn. Is this sustainable?
Well, good evening to all our distinguished listeners. First of all, it is important to emphasize that parliamentary boycotts, parliamentary walkouts are tools in the parliamentary basket available to members of parliament. The current president himself has been part of boycotts and walkouts if you look at our parliamentary history. Now, in this present instance, it is important to acknowledge that we are clear in our minds, particularly after listening to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in Ahafo-Ano North, where he made the most prejudicial statement any president has made on an ongoing case, when the president states emphatically, without any ambiguity, without any equivocation, that people of Ahafo-Ano North don't vote for James Gyakye Quayson. He's jail bound. He's going to jail. Why vote for somebody who will be operating from prison? I mean, such a grave, prejudicial statement. So, since then, our leader announced at the swearing-in of Honorable James Gyakye Quayson that if we had any doubt, if we thought that there was going to be fair trial, if we thought that this was not a charade, a kangaroo process, the president has settled the matter. And so we cannot continue with business as usual. We must dig deep into our parliamentary toolkit and avail ourselves of these democratic tools that are available to us. And that is why we have said that any time that our colleagues, the Honorable Atu Forson, Minority Leader, who is also facing the most frivolous charge that we have ever seen, I mean, you sign an LC, and we are told that it was his duty to go and inspect vehicles that are supposed to be ambulances.
I mean, to be fair, these matters are now subject of a court hearing. But I need to ask you this: there are 3 cases at least I can count involving some of your members. Atu Forson, you just mentioned there, Gyakye Quayson, and then Collins Dauda. If these cases travel the full length, it means, in effect, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, that Parliament for the next 1.5 years until the next election can work. Is that acceptable? Is that even realistic? How do you explain that to your constituents, for example?
I can assure you, Evans, that since the minority leader's announcement, I mean, I was in the constituency over the weekend. I arrived to a rousing welcome. The rank and file of our party, our constituents, are very excited about this decision. They say that, look, it's even been too long in coming. And that after listening to the president, I mean, it's so clear that this is a kangaroo process. This is a political witch hunt. There is a clear attempt to persecute political opponents, particularly in this era of hung parliament, so that they can weigh their options in a by-election and see if they can snatch seats and get a comfortable majority. We are saying that we now have to scale up. We are no longer going to adopt a business as usual approach. If they will stop the persecution, if they will stop the witch hunting, then we can sit down and build consensus. Look, we are all reasonable people. We want this country to run. We want governance to be pursued within a cordial atmosphere. We are not happy about this atmospherics. But truth is, when your back is against the wall, you are being witch hunted, you are being hounded. We have been left really with no other option but to embark on this democratic path.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa there. You've heard him. You've heard the NPP side as well in this particular conversation. The MPs, they represent you. I want you to give me your verdict. 055-1111-997. Newsnight starts right now. In the next 60 minutes here on Newsnight, Speaker of Parliament Abang Bagbin tears into Supreme Court for striking our law granting license to grow cannabis.
I don't think that is proper for the judiciary to, without knowing how we conduct our business here, really go into how we conduct the business and make such important decisions without consulting the House.
We have details as Interior Minister described the Supreme Court ruling as a grievous wrong.
To therefore say that Section 43 is unconstitutional because there was no debate was, in my humble opinion, a grievous error.
Meanwhile, government has introduced the same section struck out by the Supreme Court as an amendment.
In tandem with the international movement, and also that we consider this to be a public health issue and the benefits of medicinal and industrial as well as economic value, this amendment is necessary.
Stay with us for your views and comments here on News Night. Also here on the program tonight, alarm in the Ashanti region amongst health officials following exodus of health professionals, with an estimated 300 abandoning their posts for greener pastures in the first quarter of this year alone.
Now it's close to about 10 a day, because as at the first quarter, we've lost over 304 nurses who has requested for leave without pay for various reasons. Meanwhile, most of the reasons is that they want to travel outside the country.
The situation is already biting hard on some health facilities.
What is pulling them, and that is the pounds and dollars, which we cannot match.
You meet certain nurses, and by the next day, you can't find them, and you are told that they've migrated to seek greener pastures. So it's basically just like a rapture.
Well, government expected to pay back World Bank guaranteed on the Eurobond holders after the country failed to meet its financial commitment.
Ghana's Black Queens begin their quest to qualify for next year's AFCON with a clash against Rwanda. We'll tell you more later.
Also, we hear from the IGP today, who is on a campaign to build relations with the community. We'll tell you how he accompanied 3 school children who ran away from him. In fact, they bolted on seeing him and his personnel, and then he escorted them to school.
And we picked the relevant lesson, and we are going to double our steps in trying to build partnership and engage the community for us to be able to win your hearts and minds.
All the details plus your comments here on Newsnight. 055-1111-997. Details after the break.
You ever buy credits where you get up to 20% of your money back before? Make I tell you about Vodafone's Adamu promo. See, anytime you recharge Adamu, you get up to 20%, whether it be short code or your Vodafone cash wallet, or you don't use credit transfer to your number or someone else. And now you be high tech, so you don't use my Vodafone app or any payment app. Adamu, however you do, Vodafone go send you up to 20% cash back. Adamu into your Vodafone cash account. We'll reload it, but then you enter. Top up your airtime with 5 Ghana cedi or more in Vodafone's Adamu promo. And receive 20% of your money back straight into your Vodafone cash wallet. Recharge and cash out in the Vodafone Adamu promotion.
Vodafone, further together.
I've got Bell back and I won't let go.
My name is Nanama McBrown. Many people think I get what I want anytime because I am popular. No, that is not true. It is because me and Kasano, I like the best, and when I find it, I stick to it. I have found Bell Pack Tea Roll, and I'm stuck with it. It is soft but not weak, strong but not hard. It is just perfect. Bell Pack Tea Roll is smooth and gentle on the skin. Same as Bell Pack Kitchen Towel. It cleans in one wipe. You can soak, squeeze, and clean again. One Bell Pack Kitchen Towel lasts longer and saves you money. It's time you switch to Bell Pack today and experience the perfect paper tissue. Say pocket tissue, table napkins, tea roll, and a kitchen towel. Paper chow. Bell Pack is simply the best. Bell Pack, just perfect.
To be a Bell Pack distributor, call 055-11-44400. Another quality product from Bell Aqua.
Nothing feels so good like Bell Pack.
And you're live on News Night. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. The Speaker of Parliament, Abang Babwing, has torn into the Supreme Court tonight for striking out the law on granting a license to grow cannabis, popularly known as weed. Now, the court took the decision because there was no debate in Parliament on it before it was passed. Now, the Speaker called on judges to respect Parliament and learn about its processes before rendering judgments on his work. Mr. Babin insisted it's improper for the Supreme Court to have struck out Section 43 of the Act.
We are, however, not reviewing the decision of the Supreme Court. What we are seeking to do is to correct an error and reinstate the right provision. And so I am going to refer the bill to the Committee on Defense and Interior for consideration and report to the House. Since it is just a section, the committee could present the report within 1 week. It's a matter that is dear to my heart personally, and I think the country is losing a lot as a result of this decision. We need to work expeditiously to rectify the wrong. I hope that the three arms of government will work together and respect each other. In cases of doubt, it's important to consult the other arm before giving finality to whatever decision the other arm wants to take. And I don't think that it's proper for the judiciary to, without knowing how we conduct our business here, really go into how we conduct the business and make such important decisions without consulting the House. That is improper. I have made this known to them, and I want this to be known publicly. This is for the benefit of the country. So please, committee, you are given 1 week to submit your report.
Well, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry was also on the floor today, and he described the Supreme Court's ruling as a grievous error.
Mr. Speaker, the shared majority decision declared Section 43 of Act 1019 as unconstitutional and null and void. Mr. Speaker, permit me to state that I respect the decision of the Supreme Court, but I do not agree with it. And Mr. Speaker, the reason that has been given is that that session had not been debated before this House when this House was passing the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020 Act 1019. Mr. Speaker, when the Honorable Speaker of this House does state that a matter is for the consideration of this House, it is open for debate, and the debate is not only when opposing views are expressed. At the end of it, when there are no contrary views expressed, the Speaker then puts the question. So consensus is part of the debate, and therefore it is wrong for the court to say that it was in violation of Article 106 of the 1992 Constitution. To therefore say that Section 43 is unconstitutional because there was no debate was, in my humble opinion, a grievous error. But because we need to be in tandem with the international movement, and also that we consider this to be a public health issue and the benefits of medicinal and industrial as well as economic value, this amendment is necessary to let us put back what has been, in my view, erroneously declared unconstitutional.
Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante is with me on the line right now. Kweku, what do we know about this law and the processes surrounding its passage that convinced the Supreme Court to strike it out in the first place?
Right, Evan. So mainly the Supreme Court took issue with what it said was a no debate surrounding the passage of that bill. It also said that there was no explanatory memorandum attached to the bill that was placed before Parliament, setting out in detail the policy change, the defects in the existing law, and the necessity to introduce a law to license the cultivation of cannabis. The court held that it was in violation of Article 106(2) of the 1992 Constitution. What I recall is that at the time this bill was taken through consideration stage, it was Joseph Osei-Wusu, the first deputy speaker, who was presiding. There was actually some comments on both sides of the House, which normally is what we call a debate in Parliament. What did not happen was that there was not a strenuous opposition to the bill. As in, there was no member getting on his feet and arguing that maybe Parliament should not go on that route, because they had all accepted the rendition that had been provided by government through the Interior Minister and the rationale that had been given for which reason they had to pass that law. The Interior Minister had insisted that they need to be able to give some entities license to cultivate cannabis which does not have more than 0.3 tetrahydrocannabidiol content for industrial and medicinal purposes. But the court took aim at this and said that there was no debate, although Parliament insists that you cannot say there is no debate because there was no controversial or views in opposition to the bill. So there were comments on both sides at the consideration stage. There was a vote on Section 43, which the Supreme Court struck out and eventually carried. But eventually the Supreme Court held that that part of the law was unconstitutional.
And I get a sense that there was popular support for this in Parliament, and this is a section and generally an act that will license companies to grow cannabis, or what we call popularly weed, for medicinal purposes. Am I reading this right, that in the House generally there was support for this?
Generally, there was such a unanimous support for it, because Evans, you would be aware that there is such a view among the public that maybe weed smoking is not bad, is bad. What the law sought to do was not to legalize cannabis as had been erroneously reported in some sections. What the law wanted to do was to grant licenses through the Interior Minister to certain entities to license or to cultivate cannabis which did not have more than 0.3 THC in it. According to government, this was something that was going to rake in a lot of money and also going to conform to international best practices. And so this is something they wanted to do. Government was able to convince Parliament on both sides of the aisle to pass this. So at the time that this passed, there was not a single public opposition to this in Parliament.
So this section that the Supreme Court pronounced on, what has happened to it now?
So ordinarily, it has been taken out of the law because the court says it was unconstitutional, which will mean it is null and void. Well, government says the Supreme Court has done that, and they are still interested in Section 43. The Supreme Court did not say that the content of Section 43 was unconstitutional. It said that the manner in which it was passed, first, that there was no debate, and that secondly, that it did not have explanatory memorandum. Government says while they disagree with government on that, they are trying to remedy that, and they've put that before Parliament today, and the expectation is that by the time Parliament rises for break, they would have incorporated the Section 43, which was ordinarily struck out, back into the law. The Interior Minister says it's of great importance for the country to do this.
It is also important at this juncture to say that this bill does not seek to legalize recreational use of cannabis. No, it seeks to allow the minister to issue a special license for cannabis that is produced to a certain specification, which is 0.3% THC. And Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, where you and I come from, there's a popular vegetable called bir. Bir has a higher THC than 0.3%. Yet, it's not toxic and does not set anybody acting in any ways that are unreasonable. Mr. Speaker, what we have, therefore, is that we are moving in tandem with a modern approach to the production of this cannabis to the specific specification for industrial and medicinal use. And that is a matter that actually has been adopted by a number of African countries, including South Africa, Lesotho, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Rwanda, and recently Zambia. We also have that it's a trend that gives economic benefits to the countries, and we have the trend now that $1 billion is out there, and countries like the United States, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, and Peru have all identified and are going along to make sure they achieve what is useful. Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, for now is to say that we want this amendment, and the amendment is going to introduce the Section 43 exactly the way it was.
Let's bring in a member on the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. He's a member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxing Nelson Defiamekbo. Roxing, thanks for your time here on Newsnight.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners.
So the Speaker of Parliament had a curious position on this on the floor today, that when the Supreme Court or the judiciary is pronouncing on matters bordering on the legislature, on your arena when it comes to the passage of laws, they should first consult Parliament on that. How is that even realistic?
Now, thank you very much. I want to answer your question by stating that a careful reading of the judgment of the court. The court has the inherent power to interrogate matters that come before it, before entering judgment. And so, even if lawyers on either side of the divide fail to address the court on such critical matters as to facts and evidence, the court could go out of its own way to further conduct investigations before making pronouncements. But I won't blame the court too much, because you see, it is not for fanciful reasons that the court will ask lawyers to address the court when matters or arguments are done, evidence are led and recanted. It is for reasons such as this. The Attorney General did a shoddy work in this matter, because the Attorney General failed to demonstrate a certain level of understanding of the legislative process. It demonstrated a certain level of illiteracy of the legislative process. Because you see, like the learned Interior Minister said, when the Speaker says the amendment is moved and is seconded and it is for the consideration of the House, it is part of our deliberative process.
Yeah, but how do you blame the Attorney General for that?
I blame the Attorney General because the Attorney General was the entity sued. So if you are sued in such a matter, if a plaintiff sues you in such a matter, your office ought to conduct a due diligence in respect of this matter before you answer in court. He failed to do that. Look,
and you're certain of this, that he didn't come back to Parliament to understand before
exactly, because I procured a copy of the bill, and at page 1 of the bill, portions of the position taken by the court are reproduced, and I read that's paragraph 3 of the bill, the memorandum of the bill, and I read, and it says, from the evidence submitted by the plaintiff herein, there was no debate of this crucial amendment. The defendant does not even assert that there was a debate over the amendment, which was introduced at about 5:50 p.m. and short of presidential assent had become law by 6:02 p.m. Ironically, the respondent contends that every provision of the bill was debated. However, when the plaintiff positively asserts that clause 43 of the bill was not debated in any shape or form, the respondent, in this case, which is Attorney General, conveniently failed to contradict such a direct, specific, and material allegation. There was also no report which was put to Parliament specifically on what the effects of such a critical change in the law regarding the cultivation of cannabis will be. So it was the duty of the Attorney General to recount this piece of evidence with evidence from the Hansard of the day. It wasn't done. So for me, the procedure being adopted by the Minister for the Interior is legitimate, except that I want to disagree with the form.
I mean, I just a minute away from the processes. Let's quick thoughts from you on the substance of this. I wonder, are you one of the MPs in support of this piece of legislation?
I didn't hear.
I mean,
that.
are you one of the MPs in support of this piece of legislation?
Yes. I took it. Are you not surprised that a bill that has been laid just about 3 hours ago? I have a copy.
Yeah,
I've so much. I wasn't in the house today. We were in court supporting our colleagues.
And address a concern that many people have raised with this, that you are opening a door of no return, and this is going to be a Pandora's box that could end the lives of a lot of people. And that once you give license to people to cultivate, you say for medicinal purposes and of a certain grade, that is opening the door for abuse of that particular legislation, especially in the country where we have very poor, weak monitoring and enforcement mechanisms.
Evans, you sometimes you ask your question in a narrative way. There's no confusion. What Parliament seeks to do is to license persons who cultivate a special form of cannabis for purposes of medicinal and industrial purposes.
And you can guarantee it will not be abused.
We can, because structures will be put in, strict legal regimes will be put in place to ensure that if you breach that, that is your problem. You face the consequences.
Okay. Roxanne Nelson, Defameko, thank you very much for your time. I want to hear from you on this matter, 055-111-1997. Let's stay with issues surrounding health, since we're talking about cannabis and medicinal purposes. There's alarm in the Ashanti region tonight among health professionals following the mass exodus of health professionals there, especially nurses. The health professionals are leaving in their numbers for greener pastures abroad. The Ghana Health Service estimates that at least 10 nurses leave the service daily, and over 300 in the first quarter of this year alone. My colleague Ohim Interior looks into the issue of brain drain and how it's affecting healthcare delivery, particularly in the Ashanti region.
Experienced nurses are living in drones with the expectation of better working conditions, flexible work schedules, and better pay in the foreign countries. The exodus of nurses is depleting critical units of some health facilities in the Ashanti region, where 304 nurses have left for abroad in the first quarter of 2023 alone. Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Emmanuel Kojotinkran, laments the situation.
Now it's close to about 10 a day, because as at the first quarter, we've lost over 304 nurses who has requested for leave without pay for various reasons. Meanwhile, most of the reasons is that they want to travel outside the country. Those who are going are, let me say, the best that we have, because these are the people that we've trained for years. They've acquired the knowledge, the skills, and then the right attitude to manage cases.
Most of the nurses are now vacating their posts under the guise of going on leave. The situation has left some facilities with few staff to man critical units such as maternity, mental health, surgical wards, and theaters. One of such facilities is the Kumasi South Hospital, where the exodus of critical health professionals is a daily phenomenon. Dr. Nana Kwesi Blankson is the acting medical director.
On daily basis, we have nurses leaving our facilities. You meet certain nurses, and by the next day, you can't find them, and you are told that, they've migrated to seek greener pastures. So it's basically just like a rapture. What we know is that most of them will apply for leave without pay.
10 out of 18 personnel at the surgical ward have left their posts this year alone. Acting nurse manager Victoria Safua Osei is overwhelmed.
It makes the work difficult. We had wanted to have another unit, but because we don't have enough staff, we can't do that. You overload yourself, and then at the long run, you will see that you won't be productive.
Are there instances where you'll be there and you receive complaint that we are short of team members, as let's say Unit A or Unit B,
yes,
because of the exodus of
yes. The male surgical ward like this, we're having about 20 nurses there. Currently, we have only 8 nurses. So look at the gap. It's not easy.
There are concerns quality care could be compromised as the few available hands are overburdened. The Ghana Health Service appears to be helpless in finding an antidote to the brain drain. Deputy Director General Dr. Anthony Ofosu-Adolfo says there's little the service can do to stop staff who are motivated by money to travel abroad.
What is pulling them, and that is the pounds and dollars, which we cannot match. So the pull factor is huge. Yes, and I mean, so if countries have gaps and they have more money than us, they will attract more than we can attract, like the UK, US now. After the COVID, they have huge gaps in.
And Ohimintoya brought us that report. I want to bring in right now the Nurses and Midwifery Association. I can speak to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association. Dr. Tinkran Chum is the General Secretary there and joins us on the telephone line right now. Thank you for your time here on Newsnight. I mean, this is a story we've been telling. Now you're hearing from the health officials themselves, giving us the numbers and how it's now affecting healthcare delivery in the Ashanti region. I wonder, is there a solution in the offing to try and stem this flow?
All right, Ivan, good evening. Good evening to your listeners. Certainly, we need to find a quick solution to this problem. And it's not as though we didn't sound the alarm bell. If you remember, I've had a series of conversations with you, and I recounted the possible exodus that was staring in our face as far back as 2020. So, yes, that we all know that we cannot match the kind of salaries that are being paid out there. And it's not as though the nurses in Ghana want to be paid like their colleagues in Britain. We all know that the economic of scale and, our economies are not the same and the rest of it. But it's simply because the condition of service in Ghana is up. It's nothing to write home about. You'd be surprised that nurses, majority of them, don't have any single allowance. The major problem is that, you see, the gains that we made during the implementation of the single span have been whittled away because of an unfriendly policy decision by the elsewhere government. Look, in 2012, when the single span was implemented, there was a component of the allowance structure known as market premium. In 2013, it was frozen. It wasn't removed, but it was frozen. So before then, anytime that salaries went up, that also inched up a bit. And that could help checkmate inflation and increase the purchasing power of nurses and midwives and, for that matter, all health workers. Because of that, all the gains that we made got eroded, all right? And there are other things as well, not only salaries, okay? There's nothing like accommodation for nurses. Not even the senior-most nurse in this country has housing allowance, okay? So if, for instance, you post nurses, and I know, for instance, if I'm renting a house in Accra and I'm paying, let's say, 1,000 Ghana cedis or 1,500 Ghana cedis a month, I don't think government can pay that much. But if government says, let me give you maybe 60% or 70% of that accommodation allowance, it will mitigate the challenges that we are having.
So this is down to money.
Not only money, I've told you there are other things as well. All right? So, for instance, we had something we call car waiver. All right? In 2000, 2001 up to about 2006, when the exodus also reared its ugly head, President Kufuor called us to the castle. We sat down, and then we had to come out with certain policy decisions, including the car waiver. The car waiver was removed by Mr. Mahama.
Except that we are in different economic times, and the state cannot afford to do that now.
Why can't it be done? How much is car waiver? You understand? So it's so expensive to buy the cars that are being assembled in Ghana. So if there is a waiver for health workers, and it's not like every year you get a car waiver, it's once in 5 years. So why can't that be done for an ordinary nurse or ordinary midwife? So these are some of the challenges. And my brother, if nothing is done about it, then of course nobody should even contemplate of stopping anybody from traveling. I've kept saying that the nurses and the midwives have every right to make life better for themselves everywhere. And there are copious legislation of ILO that we have rectified as a country, and nobody can stop them from traveling. What we need to do is to improve the service conditions of nurses and midwives. Not everybody wants to travel outside this country. I have been here for the past 22 years.
But if nothing's done about this, maybe the imposition of some form of a bond or a ban, we're going to have a situation in this country where we'll run out of health professionals.
So it is not about banning. That is the laziest approach. It's about improving the service conditions of nurses and midwives. I'm telling you that it's not everybody who wants to leave. A little cushioning will be enough for them to stay. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association, Dr. Tinkran Chum. There. You're still live here on News 90s on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, the National Food Buffer Stock Company has called an emergency meeting tonight in the desperate bid to resolve the crisis over 270 million cedi debt owed members of the National Food Suppliers Association. The food suppliers will spend a third night at the premises of the Buffer Stock Company this evening, piling pressure on government to pay what they are owed. The Buffer Stock Company has in the last hour issued a statement. Details of that shortly. But first, my colleague James Abeji spent the night with them on Wednesday and has come through with this report.
You can see hanging on the neem tree here is a mosquito net of one of them fully prepared as they have come. We are told that they are drawn from different parts of the country, from the northern belt, from the southern, as well as the middle belt, all prepared to spend the night here. What we see at this end of the compound is actually a gas cooker with other things here. You see a gallon, I'm pretty sure, containing water, with rubber and plate bowls as well, indicating their preparedness to stay here as long as it will take government to pay them their money. You could clearly see a sponge and a towel in the rubber there, the bag, I'm sure, containing their belongings as well. You can see the rest of them, some of them fast asleep on their bed with their bags at their foot, laying on the hard concrete here. This is one of the people pitching camp here. Let's get to know him and get to know his personal story on why he is here. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Alhaji Zakaria.
Which I'm told you are coming from different parts of the country. Which part of the country are you coming from?
Yes, I'm coming from BA.
The Ahafo region.
Yes.
Okay. For you in particular, how much does government owe you? I know the total amount is 270 million cedis thereabout. How much does government owe you?
It's slightly around 900,000.
About 900,000.
So the whole currency is 9 billion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I see. Between January last year and now, what has the communication been?
Nothing. You call, they say there's no money. The government has not been giving them money, so sometimes you call, no response.
Well, the Buffer Stock Company, they have a statement out tonight. My colleague James Aveji, who's been following this story, joins us with details of this particular statement. What is it that the Buffer Stock Company is saying?
All right, Ivan. So it's just a 3-point bullet that they put there. First, they said that they acknowledge the fact that they are indebted to this cherished suppliers. The company is saying that they are sympathizing with the unfortunate situation they find themselves in, which has compelled them to picket at their head office for the past few days. The company is equally concerned about the plight and appreciate their patience. It continues that an emergency board meeting has been scheduled on the situation and the outcome, including a possible roadmap for resolution will be shared thereafter. It ends that the board and management of NAFCO is committed to working with all stakeholders, including the Ministries of Education and Finance, for the prompt resolution of the issue. So essentially, that's what they are saying in that statement.
Okay, and we'll get some reaction from the suppliers who've been pitching camp and sleeping at the Buffer Company pretty shortly. And you can also get the full details on myjoyonline.com. And George Yafe is here with business. When we return on the Ghana Portals exhibition, we take you to the Tema Community 22, where residency, driving within the boundaries of the community, has become a real pain. And then we'll also hear from the IGP. He's been interacting with school children today, and also on the campaign to win hearts and minds. We'll tell you how it's going. George, what do you have in the headlines?
I've seen some interesting pictures. The IGP engaging school children when he was kneeling, actually. And
you know, when we're growing up, when you offend your parents, the first thing to say is that they'll take you to the police station. So you grew up actually fearing the police, and then of course the child that fears the police grows up to be an adult who still fears the police. And so the IGP believes, let's start there. Let's build a sort of relationship with the children. When they grow, they'll see us as friends.
Community policing, right?
Absolutely. We'll tell you the details of that when we return. George, tell me what you have in the headlines.
Well, events coming up in business. Government expected to pay back World Bank guarantee extended to the Euro bondholders after the country failed to meet its financial obligations. And agric workers want government to do more to move crop production from being rain-fed to help sustain the sector's good run. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Alliance Life and Ghana Pay.
Business no a bit news to say. So the projections from the first quarter show a higher total gross profit for the fiscal year. A bit me kasa say
Nana, goods not land you. He did the port right.
A bit me to say.
Here are your items. Thank you for coming.
Yes, 2 for 10 cedi, me no 10 cedi, 2 for 10 cedi.
However you do business, wherever you do business, MTN Business has a solution for you. Join us on 14th July at the Kumasi Mall and 28th July at the Rollins Park in Accra Central. To learn how to do more and stay ahead of the pack, visit mtn.com.gh/business or call or WhatsApp 0244 308111 for enquiries. It's time to scale up this July with MTN.
MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302-764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website, www.kingdomgh.com.
Do you know Flamingo Paint has superior properties than any other paint brand on the market? Listen, when you take 1 bucket of Flamingo Paint, is equal to several buckets of any paint brand on the market. So, Flamingo has superior hiding properties, superior coverage, it means it covers, and superior durability. Flamingo Paint, superior hiding. Flamingo Paint, superior coverage. Flamingo Paint, superior durability. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. No matter your water needs, Syntex has it all. Syntex tank was first to introduce double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tank was first to introduce white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and now introduces the customer specs order, which will let you order any color and size you want. Syntex tanks gives you the biggest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you. So whatever your water consumption, size of project, or demand, choose Syntex tank. Syntex tank, stress-free. Syntex tank, reliable. Syntex tank, maximum guarantee. Call 0244 335 168, Kumasi 0505 555 666, or visit syntexgh.com. Syntex tank, a strong, a tough.
Media Sambisanda Moa. Etiam Ratiano, Mumu, I panic me Vietnam, Podom Pemman Yakono. Eh, Quabna. No Mumu wants me to be just Mali, my marrying that day. And the crow, complete to me, number of people, so you super excellent ever. I didn't abandon the Braille, who see it in a mobile, some man I want it. Sir, I now could you soon use super excellent Chaco, Nenry dear, a mouse, and we are credit fit of that. No, what you ask you, my mother feel you. Kojo, sir. Yeah. Pepsodent Heba and a Pepsodent Chaco. I've idea. You're gonna natural.
FDIJ Jadion Katuyatu.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, World Bank has indicated that Ghana or government will have to pay back with interest the recent guarantee it extended to the holders of the 2030 Eurobond. The World Bank in April this year was forced to step in and pay bondholders some $372 million as coupon payment on these 2030 Eurobonds. Now, this was after government failed to honor obligations to those who were holding these papers. Pierre Laporte is World Bank country director.
Will honor its commitment and pay off the guarantee, which we've already done. As the coupons will come, we will pay. We've already, in writing, the board has approved for us to fully pay the $400 million guarantee out of a $1 billion bond. And then Ghana will have to pay back over time, and we've offered some terms that we feel are reasonable for both sides for Ghana to repay. Other than that, I cannot say that World Bank borrowing has got Ghana anywhere. On the guarantee, as a one-off, out of your $7 billion debt, we guaranteed a fairly small amount. So we recognize our shortcomings, and we've learned lessons, and it's got us internally to rethink the guarantee as an instrument and how and in what context we do it, because guarantees remain an important instrument. I mean, there are also partial risk guarantee that the IFC works a lot with, and private sector. We cannot just because Ghana fell into some issues with that we just will do it. It's one of the instruments in the World Bank portfolio, and we will learn lessons and look at how we better bring this kind of help to countries. But in the broader scheme of things, it's the country's debt management strategy that has to be right. I mean,
Pierre Laporte is the World Bank country director. Now, the Bank of Ghana has expressed optimism that its 4-year agreement with the International Finance Corporation to train and build the capacity of financial sector players will go a long way to complement efforts of the regulator in ensuring resilience and sound financial sector. The program will help the country's banks implement Ghana's sustainable banking principles and incorporate them across all the sectors. Head of Banking Supervision at the Bank of Ghana, Sajesi, tells Joy Business this partnership will enhance financial stability in the country.
ESG and the sustainable banking principles in there, and this is going to have a cascading effect on how ESG issues are handled across the industry. So it's going to be a win-win approach in the sense that the regulator is going to benefit, and the spillover effect on the institutions that we supervise, to the extent that we'll be able to give guidance to these institutions so that they also improve upon whatever ESG framework they have in place. And at the end of the day, what it means is that our financial stability mandate will be achieved.
Head of Banking Supervision at the Bank of Ghana said the donor for training program is the Suez Economic Corporation and the Development of Ghana, instead of committing $1.5 million to ensure financial sector players are trained on environmental social governance principles. Now, Greek workers want government to implement programs and projects that would help crop production move from being rain-fed is coming after the agri sector for the third year running recorded a significant growth after the services sector. Now, General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Carraway, noted that a lot more needs to be done to ensure that the sector's fortunes doesn't depend that much on rainfall.
Sometimes we have heavy rains that wash away crops and livestock, but if the rains are moderate and they do not cause that type of havoc, and then they are also consistent, and then particularly for the northern part of the country, if the rains continue to be available until the end of October, certainly we'll have a good yield. So the outlook could be good in that. But it is very difficult to predict because the agricultural production in this country is largely rain-fed. And the guess of anybody could be as good as mine, since we don't control the factors that promote agricultural production in the country.
General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Carraway. Now, petroleum exploration firms say they would continue to engage government with the recent taxes placed on the sector, despite they having a stability agreement with the state. Government recently secured Parliament's approval to tax the profits of these firms even before they actually post the final profits. Now, some of these firms have raised concerns about these taxes and how it will affect production in the country. Let's hear from David Ampofo, his chief executive of the Ghana Chamber of the Petroleum Exporters and Exploration Firms.
Sort of set out themselves with a very clear understanding of what the position is, and find out as you go on that it is shifting. And I say that, very cautiously, and it is extremely important that that is not the case. So we have to. We really don't have a choice. And the Ministry of Finance, for example, is a big stakeholder that we as an industry will be engaging. After all, the tax authority really is an implementing agency, and so, but it is the policy makers that really we need to engage so that these things, can be put into a better perspective.
David Ampofo is the chief executive of the Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber and Events. Tonight, it's about businesses and the country's regulations and the legal framework as we engage Professor Ernest Kofi Aboji. He is the Dean of the UPSC Law School. I said, how do we ensure that our laws actually encourage the growth of businesses rather than affecting their expansion? And how do you ensure that you don't fall foul of these laws as a business person operating?
One of those very important factors when you're assessing the ease of doing business.
Yeah,
and the regulatory framework for business.
And the cost of doing business in the country is at 9 p.m. on Joy News and all our social media platform on PM Express Business Edition.
Thank you very much, George. Now, some residents of Tema Community 22 are upset about the deteriorating state of their roads. No maintenance of roads has caused potholes to deepen into manholes. The asphalt has completely washed off, exposing the bare brown earth. In today's edition of Ghana's Potholes exhibition, residents are calling on the government to pay more attention to them now and not wait for later. Jojo Kobana and Kingsley Otu have more in the following report.
Yes, sir. Tema Community 22 requires great skill and resilience. It is as though staying in your lane is prohibited in this community. Drivers would have to constantly veer off their lanes to minimize the impact of slumping into potholes and sometimes get used to slumping and bumping into what looks like craters. The rains have worsened the quality of the road. Motorists barely drive 30 meters on asphalt road and they are back to what they dread. But it hasn't always been like this. The community once enjoyed good roads. But when the road started deteriorating, authorities just looked on. Drivers get angry when their vehicles constantly squeal after jouncing into potholes.
We say we have MPs. What are they doing? Nothing. They don't do anything, I'm telling you. They don't do anything at all. Just imagine if you have a car on this road, how will you feel? If I go to shop, I buy shocks about 1,000 to 1,300. But it's like within a month, you have to go to the shop. Within a month, you have to go to the shop, which is very bad.
A large billboard along the road directs cars to the DVLA premises for renewal of roadworthy certifications. Daniel Asari, president of the Tema Community 22 Residents Association, is not amused by this irony.
That is the irony, to drive through a road which is not roadworthy, to go and do your roadworthy, and then you come out back onto a road which is not roadworthy after you've done your car. It's just frustrating, especially when you just have to do a short run within the community, not that you're even going far. It takes so much time, you have to be extra careful. At least those of us with four-wheel, we manage, but it's bad. The car will be jumping. It's very uncomfortable.
The residents of this community say they cannot endure anymore and want swift government intervention.
And Jojo Kobana and Kingsley O2 filed that report. Find it on many social media platforms, also on myjoyonline.com. Ms. Bao is here with sports.
Yeah, events. Well, it's the Black Queens. They now finally know the team they'll be facing in the run-up to the African Cup of Nations for the women's side come next year. And they'll first be facing Rwanda, and they will have to travel away to the East African nation for that qualifier. And afterwards, the winner of that game between the Black Queens and Rwanda will face the winner between Namibia and Gambia. Now, let's talk about Chelsea's Azpilicueta, because he has now finally left the club after some 11 years there, and he's moving to Atletico Madrid. And just before his departure, in a video posted on social media, he had some very, very tearful words for Chelsea fans, expressing gratitude and also expressing some hope that the team will bounce back.
For me, it's very important to go in good terms, with the club, with the new ownership. I'm grateful for them for having honest conversation and for showing me the respect. Chelsea is my home. It will always be, and hopefully I can come back in a different role. The personality, the soul of the club, all together pushing in the same direction. I know that Chelsea will be back where it should be.
Yeah, so Azpilicueta there expressing some hope that Chelsea will be back where it ought to be. And just a little bit of more transfer news. Granit Xhaka has finally left Arsenal to join German side Bayer Leverkusen at a €25 million deal. The midfielder signed a 5-year deal with the Bundesliga club. And, this might interest you, Evans. Of course, they talk about racism and all of that. Well, the Rio de Janeiro government has named an anti-racism law in honor of Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. The law has granted permission to end sporting event in case of a racist conduct. Local media said the law was inspired by Vinicius' response to being racially abused during a game at Valencia in May, which was stopped as the player pointed out those responsible. The law includes protocol on how to process complaint of racism and mandatory educational campaigns. That's it for sports. Events brought to you by Pepsodent Herbal and Charcoal. Pepsodent, every smile matters.
Finally, some action on the issue of racism in European football. Thank you very much, Ms. Ba. I want to take you now to the Pidjasi Hills in the eastern region, where residents are tonight united in their demand for structural integrity tests on buildings sited on the Pidjasi Mountains following falling rocks that blocked portions of the road Wednesday morning. It was the regional minister who first made the call and had assured that this will happen, but the residents say they want it now.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. I want them to come. He should try his best to let them come and see what he said he should come and see, like to investigate about the buildings, how strong they are. Like he should encourage them. He should be on them to come so that they will come and do their work well, so that we will be safe here.
They must be in a hurry to attend to the situation, because the situation over there is very dangerous.
But then the thing is, who even allow people even to develop the mountain top? Because in that time it rains, there's erosion. So I think the experts, they have to come in, what they think best
If only what he's saying is serious, then he has to get up and work on it very fast. Because since morning, we haven't seen any engineer around this place. So they should work on it very fast.
Well, my colleague Carlos has been in that community all day, joins us on the telephone line right now. Carlos, we are now learning that the debris that blocked the road yesterday actually isn't from Rockfall. It's actually from a development on top of that mountain, a hotel that had its wall fall over. What you've been talking to the management of that facility. What are they doing to fix it after the minister gave the directive yesterday?
So, following the directive given by the minister this morning, when we got there, we saw some contractors or masons trying to re-erect the broken wall, which spanned about some 40 meters. So, we also found out about 6 workers were on site. And according to the manager of the facility, it's as a result of the directive given by the Eastern Regional Minister. So we can take a listen to him.
Since the minister gave the orders yesterday, we have brought our men around. We are trying to construct a blockway here so that when the water comes, it will just go direct down the drain over there. Because if you are bringing in structural engineers, they are professionals. Yeah. So when they come in and assess the situation, they feel that there's something more that we have to do, then we take that advice. So if you talk about demolition, well, if it will be in the general interest of the society, well, if you give us the needed compensation, well, I wouldn't say this structure is the reason because the water flows from the top there, yeah, and then there's a drain. It passes through the drain, it seeps, and then it goes down. So the water affects everybody here. It is not our facility that affects what happened over there. So you can assess those ones which are weak and then you can pull it down, provided you give adequate compensation for the owners. Yeah.
And Carlos, very quickly, what's the state of the road itself now?
So I can say that the debris has been cleared, but the drains there remain heavily silted, actually impeding free flow of water from uphill. So as we speak, water is flowing onto the road because of the silt in the drains.
Thank you very much, Carlos, spending some time there in that community in the Eastern region. So live, your news 90 on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufo-Dampare, is on a charm offensive to win hearts and minds, to build proper community relations and harmonious existence between the police and the community today. On his interaction tour of the Greater Accra region today, the IGP bumped into 3 school children who fled when they saw him and his team. He walked with them to school whilst encouraging them to make the police their friend. Marcelo Agba was there for us and filed this report.
It's morning here at Amasaman. School children are on their way to school. The 3 of them in the community will meet an unexpected visitor, the Inspector General of Police. As a natural reaction by many children when they see the police, they start to run away. The IGP Dr. George Akufo-Dampare got down from his car and decided to walk with the 3 school children to school. It was a long walk together with other top police officers. He first went to the homes of the pupils to introduce himself to their parents.
The police is here. The police is here. So we are here.
That encounter culminated in an unplanned sensitization at the Sapeman MA2 Basic School, where the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufo-Dampare, urged the students to see the police as their friend.
I'm trying to recover from the shock that I had after meeting the little ones who saw people who were supposed to protect them and they started running. But I know one thing, that is a good thing that we witnessed and we picked the relevant lesson, and we are going to double our steps in trying to build partnership and engage the community for us to be able to win your hearts and minds, to win the hearts and minds of your elder siblings, the hearts and minds of your parents, the hearts and minds of your uncles, and more importantly, the hearts and minds of your little siblings whom we just dispatched. So that's the assurance I want to give you. We are there because of you. We have witnessed something dramatic today. We are going to recalibrate and get to the point that we'll be in a position to satisfy you. As long as we are public servants, the masters are the people in the community that we serve. Today, I'm telling you, you are our masters.
Police is your friend is a popular mantra used by officers of the law. The pupils, who are all less than 10 years old, say they are excited about their encounter with the IGP, and they now see the police as a friend.
Sarah Jane.
Why were you running when you saw the police?
I'm afraid of the police.
Yeah. So from now, would you still be afraid of the police?
No.
Why wouldn't you be afraid of the police again?
Because the police is my friends.
Now I can feel that the police are our friends, so I won't run when I saw them.
Earlier, the IGP visited the Amasaman police station where he interacted with personnel there and also engaged with residents. He asked the residents to always count on the police. The IGP is visiting police stations in Accra to assess the quality of service the public receives when they visit police stations for help.
Well, Maxwell Araba filed that report. And that's how we end News Night tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You want to stay here on News on Joy 99.7 FM because up next is Suleman Adamu Sanid, who is a member of parliament for the Ahafo-Ano North, and he is talking to Lexis Bill on personality profile.